You are listening to the Sinister DreamCast Network.
So, what's the plan?
I'm gonna start shaking things up.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Don't say that. What? That? What? That?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Tell him about the Twinkie.
What about the Twinkie?
Gentlemen, you have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Hello, and welcome to the Insert Movie Reference Here podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Nick Kazina.
And I am a host, Mr. Joe Conniff.
How are you, my friend?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm fine. We're waiting over here in Pittsburgh because it's supposed to be. Because this, Joe, you know this, and for those of you who don't live in Pittsburgh, this might be foreign to you. But Pittsburgh weather, it should be its own microclimate because the next 2 days the temperature is going to be in the teens, and then Saturday it's predicted to be 50.
Classic.
Yeah. So we're all kind of like, everyone's sitting around waiting for that. Got the faucets running so the pipes don't freeze and all that kind of stuff. So we're having that fun. But there's another kind of waiting that's going on, and that's the bated breath that Hollywood is doing for Rogue One. So much so that no one's doing anything.
Yeah, they don't even really want to release any kind of information. It's not even just a matter of they don't want to put out movies. They just don't want to release any information because it's just going to get swallowed by Rogue One right now. Which is, that just happens. That we see that happen in the summer where Nick and I don't have anything to talk about because no one wants to actually release any information in the summer. That's when the movies come out. So, and the same is here, except this is like a mini blockbuster season.
Yeah. Really, it's a Star Wars blockbuster season at this point.
This is the Star Wars season, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
This year, at least. I don't know.
I mean, it's going to be for like the next 4 years for sure.
Yeah, I mean, did they say that the release for Episode 8 is going to be around this time? It is. So,
yes.
Yeah. They proved that a large blockbuster belongs in this time of year. And then in the same breath said, we're the biggest on the block, though, so you probably don't want to open your movie up this time of year.
Have fun with that.
There's going to be there's always going to be like a Fantastic Beasts or something that comes out like a few weeks prior, like a month before, that's like pretty big and it does really well and everything, and then it just, by the time it's tapering off, in comes Star Wars. And that'll be it. You'll get one movie, one other blockbuster in.
And then you'll have like your mid-range movies like Passengers.
Yes, yeah.
Comes out, but no, it's Star Wars. Star Wars throws around their big dick.
They kind of run this time of year now.
Yeah, I just have this image of like Star Wars as like an anthropomorphic being, just saying, "Oh, you're gonna release your movie around that time. That's cute. Have fun with that."
Yeah, enjoy that. I mean, there is some consideration. They really put it off. I mean, they really wait. They really wait around, and it's really smart, too. I think the release date of Rogue One is brilliant. It was for Episode 7. It was around the same time, almost. It's a solid week before Christmas. So people, you're going to get the big opening weekend, and then you're going to get this huge Christmas weekend, or week, because people go out for movies on Christmas. It's a huge time. It's a big, and it's shocking, isn't it, Nick, that it's taken this long for studios to go, why don't we put giant budget movies out on Christmas? People will go see them. I
really feel like for the longest time, the mentality, now this is the Hollywood mentality, not my mentality, just want to precurse that the Hollywood mentality for a long time was, Jews are the only ones that go watch movies in Christmas.
Yeah, and then there's also, that goes along with that, what do Jews like to watch?
Yeah. Exactly.
So then those types of movies are made. So
you see it firsthand, Joe, in LA.
Yeah, I do. I just don't understand. And Usually these are, these executives are sometimes Jewish that are making these decisions, these stereotyping decisions. This is shocking.
But I mean, speaking of, this is a couple weeks old, but this transitions well, is Kathleen Kennedy, arguably one of the greatest producer in the history of filmmaking, and a pantheon, part of the pantheon of feminism in Hollywood, was accused of being anti-feminist a few weeks back.
When you work in that industry, anything is possible when it comes to PR.
Yes. She was giving an interview about, I would assume with a lead up to Rogue One, and someone asked her about diversity in with Lucasfilm and where are all the female directors? Mind you, they've only greenlit 4 movies. Give them some time. And that's essentially what Kathleen Kennedy said, is that we are... this is not a direct quote, but pretty much what she was saying was, a priority at Lucasfilm is hiring female directors. We just want to make sure the table is set for them before we put them in the driver's seat. Which, if you know anything about Hollywood politics, is incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
Just showing how good of a producer she is.
2 things here. One, it's Kathleen Kennedy that says that, so I'm not worried about it.
Yep.
Okay? If a male executive had said that, of course we would go, okay, you're just going to straw man this whole thing. You're just going to go, well, we're looking, but it's it's not, the climate isn't right now. You're just putting it off because you don't want to. Because it's her, and there's no reason to believe that she wouldn't want to get female directors in. It's an understanding of just how Hollywood works and how things take... They don't just take time, okay? It's not just time here, okay? It's not really about time. It's about convincing.
Yeah.
It's about changing the perspective that, the director in the chair doesn't really matter their gender. It depends on what comes out of it. And I think that's just... I think she's also waiting around a little bit for certain directors to come out with some things to see what they look like. So she can... Because, nothing would be more damaging, and she knows this. Nothing would be more damaging than putting a female director in the chair of a Star Wars movie, and that movie not doing well. Because the director just isn't that good, or that the movie just wasn't done correctly, or whatever. But she's not going to choose a female director for the sake of doing it. I think that's what she's kind of saying here is she's not just going to throw a female director into the chair because they want a female director. That would be suicide. You might not know what you're getting yet, and they could do just a bad job just because they do a bad job. That's possible.
Because they're people.
Because they're humans, yeah. And or, you might just not have built the fan base to be conditioned well enough. You may not have built a strong enough adult female audience, which she's aware of is not strong enough. There's a young female audience now because of Rey, okay? The adult female audience, the ones that will be... The adult audience is the ones that are being critical of the director. Kids aren't going to care. They're not going to know the difference, okay? But the adults will, and there's not enough female adult Star Wars fans yet.
I don't know about that.
I think that there's not enough is my point. I think they don't feel like, and I don't feel like also that maybe their opinion is not quite strong enough yet either in that world. Mm-hmm. Understanding that for many years it was, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Anakin Skywalker, and Obi-Wan Kenobi were your main characters of these movies. And even the female fans, to some degree, are brought up in a fanhood that's something that is built as a patriarch.
That's fair.
So, I mean, there may not be even fully conditioned to really understand yet that is something that's okay. Because they're going to listen to their fellow counterparts that are fans, who are men, who are not in the correct position to comment on whether we should have female directors or not.
And generally horrible.
Yes. Sorry, male listeners, but you are. The sooner we realize that, the sooner we can make progress.
I mean, if you need any more evidence than that, look at the reaction last year around this time whenever they released the first true Rogue One trailer, and the nerds that were living under a rock realized that the lead in this movie was a woman.
Yes.
We did an episode about that.
Yes. Yeah, it's a real thing. You don't just pretend this stuff isn't there, you know? You don't pretend it's not there and then go, well, we want a female director. Let's have one. Mm-hmm. And then think it's just going to work and think people are just going to praise you, and based on the praise from, you know, those that believe in this sort of thing is enough. It won't be enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of the female directors that we have right now are young.
That's my point, what I was making in terms of she's waiting, I think. I think she wants to be patient because there's probably some of these directors that she's looking at that haven't quite proven themselves enough. And like I said, it is within her due diligence to go, this director just isn't good enough. And
kind of her job.
Yeah. And it doesn't really matter. She still has to be kind of objective in that regard, you know? So this director's not going to cut it. That's just her doing her job. It's not anything to do with it. And there's not a big crop to pick from probably either. So the possibility of there not being the best out there, and female directors don't get necessarily the best education because the people teaching them are male and they look down upon them, and you know they don't get the proper education as a result. They don't get the proper, I guess, fellowship that male directors get.
Yeah.
From producers and big name actors and things like that you see. So, and what I mean by that is there are actors that will do movies for young directors that they believe in, and there really just aren't enough doing that for female directors. So the crop to pick from probably isn't very strong either, just because of the way female directors have been brought up. The learning curve has been a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at all of the directors that they have hired so far, they've all had that one movie that proves it to them.
Exactly.
J.J. Abrams has Lineage, so he doesn't even really count. Ryan Johnson, I almost guarantee, I was not in the boardroom, but I can almost guarantee Looper was the reason why he got episode
I agree.
8.
And Brick just backs it up.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that's like, well, what has he done? Well, he did that movie Brick. It was very good. It's like, but what did that movie do? You know what I mean? Like, how much money did that movie make? Like, money, it talks in these situations. Looper did very well. And it didn't just do well, it looked good too.
Yeah. And then Colin Trevorrow, who worked for her husband on Jurassic World. Which, Colin Trevorrow's even stronger because he went from Safety Not Guaranteed then to Jurassic World. So that really proves that he knows what the fuck he's doing. So,
yeah, and he kind of knows just how to handle a large budget.
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to understand with a director is directors have a lot of freedoms sometimes whenever money is thrown into the equation, right? You have this toolbox, you know? You have whatever you want to do, you can do it. And the problem with that sometimes is that you get kind of willy-nilly and you stop thinking about what really matters to the movie. And you just start spending money, you know? You don't confine yourself to anything, and suddenly the whole thing suffers as a result. And when you see somebody like Colin Trevorrow do Jurassic World, which is just a straight-up fun movie, which is all they are going to ask of the third one, to just be fun.
Yeah.
I think they built their template, right? They know what they want.
Yeah.
They know that they want this next one to be a little bit darker, you know, a little bit heavier. Maybe not darker, but heavier, you know?
And they got the right director for that.
And they got the right director for that. And then they want the third one to be more action-packed, bigger, louder, and just fun. And they have the right director for that. So, and they've kind of, and I think that's what she means by set the table, is sort of, let's guarantee ourselves as a franchise first with sure things. This franchise is too important to just start putting unknowns into the director's chair.
Which people don't realize. Star Wars is not a guarantee yet. It may feel like it. It may seem like it because of the lineage. But from a Hollywood point of view, and from the way that Kathleen Kennedy is looking at it, which is as a president and producer, it is not a sure thing.
Here's the thing about this. Nobody ever asked Joss Whedon this question, you know?
Yeah.
They asked her this question, and I think it's, you know, nobody asked Zack Snyder this question. You know, they asked her this question, probably because she's a woman.
Yeah.
Almost definitely. But there's another aspect to it as well, as I think that people are looking to Star Wars. The whole industry is looking to Star Wars to set the trend. And that question comes to her because there just aren't enough female directors. And right now, the way it is, the way Hollywood is right now, the way that they did with Rey and Finn, the decision to do that changed a lot of things in Hollywood, and it made everyone turn to them and go, well, when are we going to start doing female directors?
But don't forget Oscar Isaacs also, Joe.
Yeah,
Don't forget
too.
he's
Yeah.
Latin, because he's what they like to refer to as ethnically ambiguous.
Yes, he is ethnically ambiguous. He's a bit light skinned for he could pass as Italian. So I think that, you know, and his name is Oscar Isaacs. It's not exactly, you know, it's not John Leguizamo. You know, it's
Yeah.
But I think that's what's important here is that the industry is now looking to Star Wars to make progress on those grounds. And until they do, no one else will. And that's extraordinarily unfair to Star Wars, the franchise, first of all. But it's also very good that people are making them feel this pressure. Like, hey, just so you know, since you guys know the way Hollywood works, know one thing about Hollywood and the way it's working now about yourselves, is that you are now setting the precedents. Star Wars is now... Kathleen Kennedy is setting the trends. She has the power to put a female director in the chair and to suddenly make the studios go, oh my god, we can do that now. We're allowed to do that. You were always allowed to do it. But there's just this change in... It's a changing of the guard. It's a changing of the mentality at the top to say, this is okay. This can make money. This can make a good product. You know? To have a dark-skinned black male on our screen with a white woman. Mm-hmm. To have them be flirtatious on screen, and to, oh, by the way, make them your main characters for a 3-movie franchise at least. Name me another movie that has those things. Franchise. There isn't. Because that wasn't done. Because no one would have had the confidence to do such a thing.
Yeah.
Though it sounds like a suicide to every executive in Hollywood, actually.
Yeah. So, really what I'm trying to say is back off Kathleen Kennedy. She's trying to do her job.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely unfair to spin it like as if she was trying to, you know, play it like as if she was putting it off and she had no plans to. You know, she doesn't need to do anything, obviously, but it's one of those things where there's eyes looking in this direction, right? There's eyes looking in this direction and expecting results. And those results, based on whatever it is you stand up for, you know, what you can microcosm your equality, or you can blow it up in a macro and go, what are they doing for equality, or what are they doing for feminism? What are they doing for Black Americans? What are they doing for Hispanic Americans? Like, you can micro it down. Like, what are they doing for each of these things? Or you can just look at it and go, well, they're doing something. They're doing something positive, and it's not going to all happen at once. And it's sad to say, but when it comes to changing gender perspective, specifically in the media industry, it comes last.
Yeah.
Because it's the hardest in terms of the categories of convincing. It's just the hardest. It's further back in line, and it makes the task even harder. But it's good that they're being looked at as in that way, because if there was any other franchise being looked at that way, it just wouldn't be getting done at all. There'd be nothing getting done. Mm-hmm. So at least it's them. But again, like, it's not really fair to start putting pressure on them and to want results tomorrow on it. And because these things, none of this happens this way. And it's probably just a result of the way we've just been doing things the last several years, is we just want instant results in terms of progress and what we want out of, our current climate based on what you believe in. Progress is not fast. And especially in an industry that is just grounded in these things that just are not particularly progressive. Hollywood is not progressive. They pretend they are because they make documentaries about the environment, but they don't give a shit.
They're as progressive as the country. They're as progressive as they believe the country is.
Yeah. And
believe the country is.
Exactly.
Believe the country is. And like you said, Joe, something that I feel like people forget a lot is that progress is not fast. Just that's how it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's just tough because you sit there and you see what's obvious. And anybody that's, intelligent and thinks forward in their brain about how the world should turn out in terms of logic and rational thinking, you bang your head against the wall because all these other people just aren't getting it.
Yeah.
And you just sit there and you're just like, I understand where this is going. Why can't we just get it there? And and you're in good company. There's a massive amount of people that are with you on that. Always remember that. But there's a massive amount of people that aren't because the education isn't there. Generations, people grow up with a mentality and it just never goes away. You're talking about 100 years. People live on this planet sometimes and have control over things and make decisions on things.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing about progress is the people who don't get it, you have to trick them into being progressive.
This is the reason I tell people in the United States of America that, we should be lucky to have a CEO like Bob Iger. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, like, you don't realize how lucky we are to have Bob Iger right now. Like, you guys just don't realize. Like, we're very lucky right now. Things could change, The next CEO of Disney, for God's sakes, we should be allowed to vote them in. Because the CEO of Disney has more power than the President of the United States right now.
Yeah.
Disney controls our media. It controls parts of our media that we don't even know about. And they have such a strong influence over our society and our economy right now that, I mean, it's insane. It's terrifying. And the fact that we have one of the, branches of that company being Lucasfilm, and the head of that being a very progressive female feminist is incredibly important. I mean, we might as well, it's like a member of the president's cabinet being this way, I mean, it has that much of an impact, if not more. And in terms of an immediate impact on our youth and our future generations, it might even have more of an impact.
Yeah.
So these things, and it's interesting, and currently right now the political climate is insane, and we don't talk much about it here, and we won't get into it, but do not ignore the fact that these conglomerates that make our media, that we talk about here on a weekly, whether it be Disney or Warner Brothers, who we'll get into later, and Viacom and News Corp, these guys are just as powerful and just as important as our politicians, and we don't have a say in any of that in our democracy. And these are actually the big hitters. So when things like that happen, when you realize, when you're educated on who is running what in terms of our media and things like that, when you're aware of it, you can become very quickly aware of how dark things can look, but also how bright the future can look as well. Mm-hmm. Go to Star Wars movies, folks. If you're a progressive, go see Star Wars movies. It's kind of important. It sounds crazy, but it's kind of important that Lucasfilm does well right now, because they are on the right side of history at the very least.
Very much so with Rogue One. Rogue One's even more important because it's the first anthology movie and it has a female lead.
It's a solo female lead. It doesn't need Han Solo to back her up. So, and one of the things Nick and I briefly talked about earlier, and we talked about it briefly, is the blockbuster is here in the holidays now. And to be honest, that spells doom for the small movie, because this is when the small movie used to shine, right?
Yeah.
The Oscars and those smaller movies that maybe they're not indies by any means, but they're smaller stories. They don't require $200 million budgets. They still have big name actors in them, and there's like this integrity behind them, but those movies are not going to, when money starts to roll in outside of theatrical releases in a much bigger way, which it will soon, movies like that will do better outside of the theater. And soon, only Lucasfilm will be like, or things of that size, of that nature, Disney, Lucasfilm, Marvel, and Warner Brothers, they'll be the only ones making movies that are released in theaters.
Yeah.
They will have a huge say in the film industry and how we perceive our, big screen heroes and stories and how we portray people in them. So the scope is getting smaller.
Yeah.
It's getting smaller. So, I mean, we know TV's making a big run of this as well, and it's causing theater to hurt the smaller movies as well. But, when you have Star Wars taking up this season right now, is gone are the days that you release a fun family film on Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, they can still be released and they can still do okay, but people are just going to buy those tickets because they didn't get into Rogue One.
Yeah. And there's like you said.
And how many years does that last, really? You know what I mean? Before the pour over of tickets, before theaters start going, why would I put your movie in my theater, that doesn't even fill, that people are only going to see because they couldn't see Rogue One, when I could put Rogue One in that theater.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you, and I think you know this, Nick, but most people don't realize there are theaters that on Christmas Day could fill their theater with just Rogue One.
And make a ton of money.
And just sell out their theaters for Rogue One and make a ton of money, yeah. Did you hear this theater's only showing Rogue One? We should go there. We're definitely going to get a ticket.
Yeah. Especially now that we're in an age where exhibition is not physical.
Yeah.
Exhibition is digital.
Mm-hmm.
So all they got to do is get permission to copy that file and throw it on the projector.
That's it. It's a completely different world now. Yeah, it's very different. And and Lucasfilm and Disney won't complain.
No.
They won't tell.
Why would they?
Yeah, it's more ticket sales. It's just become a very big movie day in a way that it's like a mini summer.
Yeah. I mean, even to the point now that we're like, we've talked about this on this podcast that summer movie season is, I mean, I think this 2016 was the death of the summer movie season. Because, I mean, I was looking at the schedule. There are 3 Marvel movies coming out next year.
Yeah.
3 Marvel movies, 2 DC movies, and a Star Wars movie. And they're not all coming out in the summer.
No, they're spread out. They all want to stay the hell away from each other.
Yeah. I think only 2 of them are in the summer. I think... Actually, I'm not even sure. I can't remember when Wonder Woman's coming out. I want to say Wonder Woman's coming out in May, but I don't think it is.
I look at this and I think, why is J.K. Rowling only doing one movie series?
Yeah.
She could be doing multiple at the same time and making even more money on that franchise. I mean, and they really could. I mean, like, to be honest, they should just... Anytime these studios find a franchise, they need to just find a way. And this is... And we talked about this, but this is what's so crazy about Fantastic Beasts, is there's... Fantastic Beasts has proven now that your franchise doesn't have to end because you made all the movies in the books, right?
Yeah, you can continue.
You can continue. I mean, don't you think they could turn out another Hunger Games movie if they brainstormed hard enough?
Oh yeah.
Don't you think they could make a ton of money? In fact, once they realize they make a ton of money off of that one, don't you think they could realize, why don't we just keep making Hunger Games movies?
Yeah. Or
Why not?
Hunger Games show.
A Hunger Games TV show. Like, what? Why stop? And it makes the Matrix thing that we've talked about weeks ago even more perplexing as well. Why did the Matrix stop? They could still be turning that shit out.
Yeah, we know it fucking didn't end.
Yeah, we know it didn't end. I mean, obviously the third one did not do very well, so it kind of hurt the brand, but people will still go see this stuff. And people are clamoring for something that they remember that was good.
Yeah.
And people still remember Matrix being good.
Yeah, you talk to anyone, you say The Matrix, anyone will say, oh, that first one was great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So much, that first one is so good that it won't matter to the other two. So why aren't they just looking at it right now and going, I mean, the Wachowskis don't seem like they're money hungry. They seem like their heads are so far up their asses that they're getting whatever nutrients that they need up there, because they seem to not really care at all about money, which is a good thing, but also an insanely dumb thing based on what they've... I mean, and it's not even that, it's just a concept that it's going to waste, I feel, as well.
I agree.
But it is a bit odd that when there's money on the table that it's not being taken advantage of, and it's not being taken advantage of in a climate where really only big things, only things with guaranteed names that make big money are going to be put in theaters soon. There's no doubt about that. You don't have to look very far into the future for it either. That's just what's going to happen.
Look at next year's movie schedule.
Yeah.
If you look at next year's movie schedule, it is nothing but big movies.
Out here in LA, everyone is wondering why. There's a small theater right down the street from where I work. It's been around for many years. Not the theater itself that's there, but the name of the theater. And they have about 10 screens in their theater. 5 of them they have for all the blockbusters movies that make money, right? The other 5, indie movies that you've probably never even heard of. Okay? They do this in all of their theaters. A lot of these guys come in after their theaters or after their premieres and stuff, and it's great for them. They come into my place, and I get to talk to some of these people, and they and we try to advertise to people that they're down there as well, that their indie movies are down there when we can. But a lot of them have basically been told that they just do it because they just want to pretend like they made a movie still. Mm-hmm. Because traditionally that's how they're wired. And they've I've heard this a lot, like, they're just wired to have a premiere somewhere, in a theater, a proper theater, and have a showing and a screening, and have people come and have, and feel like you're watching your movie on the big screen, and that's because that's what you dreamt of, right? But all of the producers and all of the investors and all of the everyone in this industry goes, why would you bother even spending the money on putting it in that theater? There's the novelty of it, right?
Yeah. The
joy to see it like that. But you're not going to make a penny off that ever. Even if they show it for a few weeks for you. Even if they give you a run time. A small run of a few weeks. 2 weeks to a month, You're just going to spend money on it. You'll never make that money back on the ticket sales. You don't have the money in marketing to do it. And you're competing with Rogue One movies. You're just never going to make that money back based on what you invested in it. So you'll only make your money from streaming it.
Yeah.
That's it. Finding a deal. Yeah. Finding a way to get it in front of people that's convenient and cheap. That's the only way you'll ever make your money off of it. And everybody knows this. The only reason why you see these small movies in theaters now is because these guys come from an old school, or they've just always dreamt of that, or whatever, and they're just, it's out of pocket. It's completely an out-of-pocket expense. It doesn't make sense for them to even put it in that theater. It's a waste of money. They're just doing it for the novelty. So as of right now, indie movies are only going into theaters because the people that make them just want to see their movie in a theater and have a proper premiere.
Yeah.
There's really no reason. There's no financially, as from a business model, it doesn't make any sense. Don't do it at all.
No, I mean, no, it totally doesn't.
The only thing you should be investing in to put it in a movie theater anywhere is in a film festival, so that more investors will give you money so you can maybe help yourself get into a streaming service.
Or Oscar run.
Yeah, or Oscar run, but even that is starting to die.
Yeah.
That's become an even bigger shot in the dark. In fact, I'm not even sure why the industry at this point and I'm not against it. I'm not saying this. I'm against it, but I'm looking at it from a business perspective as well as the industry goes. I don't know why the industry bothers still looking for those darlings. Because it really hasn't benefited them for many years. It would only be because the Oscars like to instill drama into their own TV show that they want to still... It heavily benefits Hollywood to have the Oscars. And to have the Oscars have its own entangled drama going on. And to raise that sort of peak interest. So they kind of have the chosen one every year, right?
Yeah.
Their chosen one. You know, it's almost absurd. It's like pandering to people, but it's their chosen one. It's to make people think that they're still bothering with this. They have no reason to. They just want to make their award show every year seem a little more interesting. They want an underdog still.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I mean, unless you're the lucky one to have that, to have your Little Miss Sunshine, you know, really, what is the? It's a shot in the dark, you know. And by the way, to have a Little Miss Sunshine, you need a Steve Carell, by the way.
Yeah. And
just so you know. Yeah, exactly. Like, Jesus. So, yeah, you look at the cast of that movie, you're like, why is this remind me again how this is an indie movie?
It's an indie movie because the filmmaker's independent, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, you know, every Tarantino movie is technically an indie movie. Meanwhile, he himself is his own studio, so I don't... Did you hear that he did announce, actually, that he is going to be making his last movie?
I hear that every year.
Yeah. No, but this was one that I think that he actually said he would never stop past a certain number.
Oh, really?
And I think the one that he's working on, that he's penning right now, apparently is supposed to be the one that he promised would be the last one on his number. I mean, to be completely honest, I won't... It'd be like at this point of like Woody Allen was like, I'm hanging him up. It's like, okay, see ya. It's like, you've made... I mean, it's not the same when a director retires. It's really not... I mean, like if Scorsese hung it up, Spielberg hung it up, you would be like, man, they were the greatest. It sucks that they're hanging it up. But they've made their best. They've made their best, and you'd like to always hope that they have another one in them, but is it really necessary for a filmmaker that has made that much greatness at this point to make more greatness? We've gotten all we could ask for out of them, you know? And I say that about Tarantino. It's like, you know, he's hanging him up. Okay, see ya. I wouldn't mind not hearing from him for a while, you know?
Yeah. I agree. He's that independent director that everyone knows.
Yeah.
We've had a whole episode about that.
Yeah.
But
we do have one more thing to talk about, don't we?
Yeah. Which also transitioning from women in film, DC Films today announced that they're going to be making a Gotham City Sirens movie. And strangely enough, David Ayer has agreed to direct it.
That's the big surprise. I mean, it's no surprise that they're going to do this because Harley Quinn was such a big hit.
She won. Margot Robbie won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Female Actress in an Action Movie.
Yeah, good. I mean, she is that movie essentially. So, she is what's worth watching in it. So, in Suicide Squad. So it's really no surprise that they're trying to pull that, you know, into something else and make it useful. Because even just having her in like the Batman movie or something like that wouldn't really be enough. Knowing that you could spin off this character into her own movie is, you know, dollar signs. But Ayer coming back is what's so strange about it. It almost speaks volumes to how much he enjoyed working on the movie, actually.
Yeah.
And how much he enjoyed those characters, and how much he enjoyed DC characters in general, I think. Specifically, characters from its Rogues Gallery. I mean, I think it's a redemption move, to be honest. I think he's putting faith in them that they won't fuck him over a second time. And, you know, they essentially fired this man from this movie.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. I mean, it was a light, you know, firing, essentially. There's no other way to put it. I mean, they paid him to go away, but they paid him to go away pretty early.
Yeah.
Like, very early. So I think I think this is sort of his kind of way of trying to get redemption in the fan base that I think that he wants to impress. I think he feels like his name was dragged through the mud a little bit, and the only way to get redemption at this point is to literally go back into that exact same environment and prove what he could do. And you know what, Nick? I think he's smart, and I think he probably made sure that his contract had some information in it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there's no way they fooled him twice on this. So I'm betting he is going to be around for post-production, and I bet you he's contractually going to. And I bet you he also went, look, see what happened to your movie when you didn't let me back.
Yeah.
When you put me away, when you pushed me away, look what happened to your movie. Don't blame this on me. He probably said to them, I told you this would happen. He probably described to them at some point that this is what would happen if they did what they were going to do. They went and they did it. Suicide Squad disappointed pretty big time. It's and not as badly as Batman v Superman, I think. It didn't get shit on quite as much, but boy, Suicide Squad put itself in a really tough situation where it really had to be it itself was supposed to be the redemption movie on its own.
Yeah.
And it just didn't live up to it by itself, let alone the pressure that was being put on that movie. So, alas.
I mean, it also could be that, like you said, it was in his contract, and it might just be that DC Films, which didn't exist when he was making Suicide Squad, is a little easier to work with.
Yeah. Well, also, I think maybe Margot Robbie may have brought up at one point that the reason why that character is so great is because of him. Yeah. And then if you want the same Harley Quinn the second time around, you're going to need to bring him back. And you have no idea. I mean, that was, if you remember, Nick, Instagram, remember whenever the movie was in production?
Yeah.
That was a tight-knit fucking group. They all got, tattoos and shit, and, they posted shit on Instagram all the time, and it made news because they were just, this tight-knit group. It was weird. It was this... And I've never seen, Will Smith in a movie like that.
Yeah.
We've never seen Will Smith in a movie like that, where it seems like he was, part of the crew, you know? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. So we'll have what? Harley Quinn, we'll have Catwoman, and Poison Ivy.
Yeah, those are the three.
No casting announcements on the other two, probably not for a while.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have much pressure with Poison Ivy because the only other cinematic representation of Poison Ivy is not great.
No.
Catwoman has a little bit of baggage. A lot of people still look at Michelle Pfeiffer as, the Catwoman.
Pretty much,
I would disagree with that, but hey, that's just me. I mean, there's also, we'll probably get some casting on some heroes. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Batgirl in this movie.
Yeah, possibly. I have no idea. I think it's a Paul Dini comic, right?
Yeah, he has written for it. I don't know if he's written consistent, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he was the one who came up with the concept of the Gotham City Sirens, because he's...
Okay, so he's the creator of the series. And
I think. Don't quote
It's not
me,
a super long series, apparently, so it's...
No.
So there's not a ton of literature to go off of, but at the same time, there's probably also a pretty tight storyline knowing Dini, so there's probably good stuff to work off of there. So.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people have read it, so I don't think they'd be too wrong in trying to go, with a story based on, just based on the comic. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, by the way, Nick, either. There's this weird idea that, basing a movie on a specific comic is wrong to do.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that that's part of, the Batman 89 crowd, and, just people don't feel that or even just the Spider-Man movies, there's not a need to necessarily base the movies off of comics, the comic storylines at all. And I don't know why that is. But it is an interesting dynamic that has happened, actually, I think. I think there's this idea that's you can take stuff from it, but you can't make a movie on a specific comic. Batman v Superman, people were no, it can't be based on the comic. It's got to be its own thing. And I think that kind of messed with their story a bit. Too
much.
Among
other things.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if they literally just made Batman v Superman, the comic into a movie, it would have been fine. You got a much more sound movie. I mean, you have good stuff to go off of. I mean, why is it so wrong to do that, but it's completely okay to make movies based on Harry Potter and Hunger Games?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I think it also comes with the baggage that, like, the gold standard right now is Marvel, and Marvel's deviated from the comics just because they had to.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the characters that they needed. So,
so it's become, like, normal.
That.
Yeah, I think we've become normal as movie-going fans to see, like, original content through and through in terms of the story and stuff, in terms of, like, how these characters are built within this universe should be their own thing. Like, as if you're making a new comic series. But you're not. You're making a movie. And it should be good. It should still be good. And I wouldn't even... And you know what has hurt it, too, I think, is Sin City, which was, like... a close, almost verbatim of the comic, and I think a lot of people, as a result of that, kind of have gone, well, it's been done, you know? It's, you know what I mean? It's like, well, they did that already with Sin City. It's like, this isn't a revolutionary, this isn't a thing where it's like, it's been done already, you know what I mean? It's like, it can very much be done again, and don't use the damn comic as a freaking storyboard, like...
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's also, I think... Have you rewatched Sin City recently, Jeff?
I have. It's hard to get through.
It's very hard to get through whenever you make it that literal. It's a very good example of film is film and comics are comics.
Right.
So
and it's the adaptation can still be adapted properly.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of Hollywood people see it that way. We're like, we already tried that.
Yeah.
Like in the same way that you were saying it's already been done, but I think it's even. Not even necessarily it's already been done, it's more so like, we did that and it turned out horrible.
Yeah.
Or it didn't turn out right, you know?
Yeah, and it's insane because for years they've adapted books into movies, and they've done it successfully and unsuccessfully on both sides of it. But from a comics perspective, you know, I think because it's a visual medium as well, comics, that there's this idea that, like, oh, I mean, it's already there. People can already see that story. They've already seen that story play out. So we're not going to do that story. They've already seen that. We want to do a new story. But with these characters, it's like, but these characters are the same. Like, what? Like, the story's good. I would like to see this story play out on screen. Like, I don't know. And I think just, you know, Sin City, Watchmen, these movies that were trying to sort of adapt them from stories turned out sort of the same way. And not that they were unsuccessful financially, but they just didn't. They made themselves very long. They felt slow, and they
looked weird.
Yeah, they looked weird. And it was like, we don't know how to do that. And it's like, well, figure it out. It's not that hard. It's take the images away. Just take the words on the page and the dialogue. Just take it out and use it. You know, don't make that your script, but just read that and then make your script based on what you just read, not what you saw. I think that's the other thing, is a lot of these makers get caught up in the artwork and the imagery and the you know, Zack Snyder definitely got caught up in that. You know, making his own comic panels, these extravagant scenes that, you know, look sensational, you know, within the frame, and it's like, that's great that you want to do that, but please focus on the movie. The movie's important.
Do that like one or two times in the movie. You don't have to do it every 15 minutes.
Yeah, and just make something that's, you know, a good story and make the characters well-rounded. That's it. I mean, it's always simple, but it never is. But people that do this for a living know how to do it, and I don't know, because that is starting to change too. Just in general, the comic book movie, I think, has reached a point where we now have, you know, DC isn't going to play catch-up anymore. It's clear. They're not worried about that, I don't think.
No, they don't. They definitely don't seem like they give a shit.
Yeah, at first they were playing catch-up because they have, like, an older Batman and stuff like that, but now that they got their first few movies in, I think they feel like... And this is something that I think a lot of people are forgetting about Warner Brothers. There's a massive false sense of confidence going on there. Because they technically haven't failed yet. The bottom line hasn't, at least.
Yeah,
so,
everyone forgets Batman. As much as everyone hated Batman v Superman, it made $900 million domestically.
Yeah, so they haven't really done anything wrong in their eyes yet. So they haven't made any bad choices. I think they see that the quality could be better, but until people stop showing up for their movies, they feel like they're in good shape. So we'll have to see on that. I mean, it gives me faith that they're giving Ayer a second chance, because I think that they see maybe what they did wrong, possibly. Or is this them, Nick, not having the oversight of realizing that that Suicide Squad wasn't good, and whether they realize what the problem was or not, they're going back into the same well. Like, here's my point, is let's say Ayer was what was wrong with Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, let's say he did a bad job at it, and he made that movie through and through the way he wanted to, and he did just a poor job. What if then they still go back to him for City Sirens, you know? Uh-huh. Because the decision's the same, right? I mean, the movie's return is the same. They ask him to come back. Like, is that what we have here as well, though? Do we also still have them not realizing, like, what their problems are and having no idea that there is a problem?
I mean, it's possible because they keep fucking hiring Zack Snyder.
Right. I mean, a part of me wants to go, this is good. At least they realize, like, they realize that he could have done a better job, or that there was a better movie here, and they screwed him, and they're giving him a second chance, and they're giving him his redemption. Or they just literally don't know what was wrong with that movie, and they don't see anything wrong with that movie, and they're hiring him again because they think he did a good job at whatever the heck it is he did. Yeah, whatever it is you directors do that thing again that you did with that movie. You know that movie that made the money? Yeah, do that again. Yeah, but it was terrible because of you guys. Yeah, no, we want you back. You want me back? Like, I could see him just getting that call and being totally dumbfounded. Just, why are you asking me back? You basically fired me. I badmouthed you publicly, essentially. The movie did turn out bad, almost like I told you so, and then you called me back? Why? They have no idea that these things went on.
The only reason why I don't think that's the case is because of the Suicide Squad Blu-ray has something closer to his cut.
Okay.
So
yeah, I mean,
we don't know if it's exactly his cut, but apparently it fills a lot of the holes that people had a problem with in the movie, so I'm going to assume it's closer to what David Ayer had intended.
It probably has more stuff in it that he wanted, but still a bunch of the stuff that the editing team did to the movie that just... Not that it's unfixable, it's just... It's take a massive... You'd literally have to re-edit this movie to get it right.
Yeah.
And I keep saying about this movie, like, people don't realize, you put a better editor on that movie, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's just, you could just see they just went back and just threw in some patchy scenes and stuff, and you're just like, this is dumb. This is dumb. Yeah. You just didn't feel like watching this movie. Halfway through, I just didn't feel like watching it anymore.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. We'll see. I'll watch the Suicide Squad Blu-ray, and we'll find out. Excitement.
Yeah, you'll have to give us a little review of that, Nick, later on, whenever Rogue One dies down.
I will.
We might be doing 2 episodes, folks, by the way, of Rogue One.
Depending on if Joe has seen it or not.
Depending on if I see it or not by then. It's a current situation with my car where I don't have one anymore, where I literally had a ticket to go see it opening night, and that is going to change. So I am planning on seeing it before the next podcast, but even then, Nick and I, if it's quiet again, we might still talk about some of the aftermath, if you will, of Rogue One. Yeah. We may even go see it a second time, so we might review our second viewing, depending on how good it is. Again, Nick, we need to be, we need to be vigilant. We need to not just be in awe anymore of the fact that there is Star Wars. We need to be, as fans, it is our due diligence to make sure that this doesn't go south. And, Episode 7, I was, starry-eyed and just starstruck by the whole gosh darn thing that I just didn't care.
Uh-huh.
You could have sold me Episode 1 again, and I would have just made the same mistake over again. But this is different. I think this is the anthology movies. We want to see where this is going. We want to see what the deal is here. Just what the fuck are these anthology movies? And kind of go from there. And, yeah. We want to make sure nobody makes bad Star Wars shit, which will happen. You've heard it here. We've said it, and Nick and I are stupid idiot Star Wars fans, and we think everything they do is great, except for the prequels. But I'm telling you, at some point,
and even those are redeemable at certain points.
We will at some point be talking about, I think personally, a movie that was worse than Episode 3.
Yeah. I agree.
A movie that falls in between Episode 1 and Episode 3 at some point. I mean, it's just a numbers thing. What's up?
Do you mean 2?
No, Episode 2 is terrible. Okay. No, I'm saying in terms of quality. Star Wars quality movies, yeah.
Okay.
2 is the worst, and then, a movie that is better than Episode 1, but not as good as Episode 3. I think at some point, someone's going to fuck this up, and we'll, I'm just letting people know this because it's a numbers thing. Eventually, we're going to turn out a bad movie. Because we're going to get... these movies are a little safe right now, so...
Yeah.
When they start to roll the dice on something crazy, going out on a limb here and doing, the Ewok Village or something, and, it just goes south.
We'll wait with bated breath for that day.
Right, yeah. I think when we see the trailer for that movie, we'll know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It could be as early as the Han Solo movie. We have no idea, so...
We'll find out. Apparently, after the new year, Kathleen Kennedy said that they're going to be having a meeting about the next move on what they're going to be doing after Episode 9. So...
We've sold Lucasfilm to Warner Brothers. We just looked at the bottom line and said they gave us an offer we really couldn't refuse, and that's it. I'm pretty sure Lucasfilm could buy Warner Brothers at this point, so I don't know.
Just Lucasfilm.
Yeah, just Lucas. Yeah, Disney at this point could swallow the country, so I mean, they just don't need to. They're like that. They're like that player in Monopoly that is beating everybody and could just destroy everybody. But why? Why go through the effort of destroying everybody when the game still has, the way it looks right now, still 2 hours worth of them winning?
Yeah.
I've always said Monopoly's not about who wins in the end. It's who's winning for the longest period of time and refuses to end the game. That's what Monopoly's always been about.
At least
dude, you fucking won. Let's just end the game. No. Roll the dice. You gotta roll doubles to get out of jail, my friend.
Are we thinking about the same particular game, Joe?
Oh, yes, we are, Nick. Yes, we are.
And we stopped playing it with Joe and I are Monopoly fans. We enjoy playing it. We find it's a fun night in. And we played it with a particular friend that we don't normally play with, and we will never play with that friend ever again.
I think the reason, Nick, you and I like Monopoly so much is, and it's always weird to people, everyone shits on Monopoly. And I understand it, but I always say, your problem is you've never just found the right people to play Monopoly with.
Yeah.
You have to understand, in the game of Monopoly, the rules are just nonsense. The game is fun when you throw out the rules. The game's fun when you literally start to trade insanity pieces. Like... You're like, well, I got the dog. I could give... Like, at one point, I thought about selling my pawn. And maybe you can make that work for you for a little while. You can play the game without the pawn. You just don't make moves, and you just let property money come in. It's if we'll allow it, if everyone at the board is like, that's fine. For many years, we talked about making a mafia monopoly, which was essentially just making a black market within the game.
Yeah.
And it was very complicated and way smarter than both of us, which we discovered as my brother Eugene went on, who is way smarter than us, and decided to start writing stuff down about how this would work. And probably about 2 pages in, handwritten how this would work, and him still really not even being halfway through it and figuring it out, Nick and I already knew we would not be able to play this game.
Yeah.
Whatever it was and going to be, we did not have the infrastructure brain mentality to play this game. Whatever it was. But it was a great idea. It involved 2 Monopoly boards.
Yes, I remember that. I think that's whenever Gina lost me, whenever he introduced the second board.
The concept involved 2 boards. You roll twice for each board. One, as we used it, was the traditional, and the other was Star Wars, because we love Star Wars Monopoly. But the reason why that was different is because the currency was different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what made the whole thing pretty crazy. And I think the pricing was different, too, on those properties. So
That sounds about right for Jeaner.
yeah, and it was a whole thing. So, you know, it was usually about this time of year we would play it, too.
Yep.
Around Christmas break.
Tradition. Well, Joe, I think it's time for the vault.
The Vault! Nick, I have a movie, but I have to look it up real quick. So if you want to go,
a movie.
You do. Okay.
My movie came from this very year, and it was just loaded onto Netflix. And it was it's the latest film of a filmmaker that we've done a spotlight on, which is 2016's Yoga Hosers by Kevin Smith. To his credit, this movie is exactly what he said it was going to be. It is a movie intended for 12-year-old girls, and that is exactly what it is. It is intended for 12-year-old girls. It's a cute movie. It has a lot of, social media references in it. My only problem with the movie is, one, the fact that it takes place in Canada. Everyone's a little too wink, wink, nudge, nudge about a boot. It's not, there's no flow. It's not like... It's not someone saying, oh, what's this all about? Just going with it. It's all, what's this all about? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're in Canada. Get it? That's on it. And the other thing is that there's a lot of things that are ham-fisted in there just because they were at his disposal. Example being, Lily Rose Depp can speak French. So, because her mother is French. So, just randomly, there's a scene that she decides to talk to Johnny Depp's character in French. There's no real reason beyond the fact that we get the general gist that Guy Lapointe is a French-Canadian, but there's no reason for that to happen. And there's several things in the movie that are like that. Yeah, there's several things in the movie that are like that, where it's just like, he has this at his disposal, and he just feels the need to use it. Instead of going, there's no place for it, he uses it and says, fuck it. But overall, it's a cute movie. It's a fun movie. If you're a fan of Kevin Smith, you'll probably enjoy it. And you can also show it to a 12-year-old girl. Actually, I would be interested if you were to show it to a 12-year-old girl, because I'd like to know what a 12-year-old girl thinks of this movie. If they enjoyed it as much as he intended it. So, but it's definitely worth watching. It's... Like I said, it's a very cute movie. It's a very, very cute movie, and it's and I don't mean that in like a condescending way. It's just a cute movie. Like that there's no better way to describe it other than that. Justin Long has some really great scenes in it. He plays a yoga yogi, and he has some pretty fantastic improvisational lines in the movie. So. I would definitely check it out, especially if you have a Netflix subscription. You have absolutely nothing to lose. So definitely check it out. It's like I said, it's a fun. It's a fun movie. It doesn't deserve to get shit on like it does by the critics. So that's my recommendation. 2016's Yoga Hosers.
I'm going to do a movie that, again, is not particularly good, but it's worth a watch. A bit of a culty movie that I think never really caught on as the cult movie that it could have been, just because I think it's based in the gaming world, but it's based in like the 80s gaming world. So I'm gonna do Nick, and tell me if you've seen this movie, 1989, The Wizard.
Not all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces.
It's not a fast-paced movie. For a movie that was really supposed to be, it's really one giant Nintendo advertisement, to be completely honest. But it kind of predicted the future of gaming in some way, despite being set here in the 80s, or there in the 80s. It's Fred Savage is his younger brother is their sister drowns, and the younger brother is I think he drowns with her, but he lives and she dies. Anyhow, he's traumatized by this younger brother, and he just doesn't talk. And all he says is the word California. That's the only word that he says. So Fred Savage decides he's going to, just take his brother, and they're just going to go to California. They live in, like, Utah or Idaho or something like that. Some Midwestern town. They're going to just go to California. So they go on this road trip kind of to California, and they end up meeting this girl, and she sees the younger brother is like this. He's just this amazing at gaming, and she knows of, at the time, which is insane. This didn't exist, but at the time, there was a Nintendo competition going on at Universal Studios in California. So she helps them get to California to be in this competition because this kid is so good. And it's really interesting that, and this is where like the Nintendo Glove was actually first introduced to gamers. It was the way they introduced the Nintendo Glove to gamers, because I think Nintendo Glove came out in '90, and they had like this character who's supposed to be like this, like the he's not the antagonist per se, but he's sort of just like the rival video game kid. That he's like this cool. He's a really funny character. If you see him play, if you see this movie, it's super 80s. It's fantastic 80s. But he has the glove, and I remember like at the time it was like this amazing thing that people. Meanwhile, the Nintendo Glove was awful.
Yeah,
it's a terrible product. It failed, but and it's very interesting that this movie got made. Because, gaming at that time was still seen as this little kind of almost niche thing. Like, it was massive. Don't get me wrong. It's a massive industry at that point in '89. But in terms of crossing over and doing anything in movies, there really wasn't any proof that something like this would work. And it really didn't. But it's very interesting that it sort of predicted the way gaming would go. That one day there would be, like, these whiz gamers. And there'd be, like, nowadays, look at the climate now. It's a whole league. It's a multi-million-dollar league. I mean, people fill up stadiums to watch people play video games nowadays. And in '89, there was this small little movie kind of about that, about a video game competition. It was this like heralded thing that was exciting. So anyways, this kid goes and they play the game and he pretty much wins. And then at the end, there's a reveal as to why he actually was saying the name, why he could only say California. But anyways, it's a very like strong emotional tale of like sort of just dealing with a traumatic experience. I think, you know what I mean? It's just the kid just is socially just incapable, and as a result, he uses video games as his escape. And as a result of that, he became very good at it. And it was just sort of him coping with it, and he's using it as a coping method. And it's sort of explaining how video games, there is a positive side to video games. There is a use and there is a purpose for them, beyond just kids sitting around getting obese. Sure, that is a problem, but I mean, there's also another side to it that, this technology can be useful in some way. The same way all entertainment is useful as a coping mechanism sometimes. So the movie does have a message in it. It is weird, though. It is one of these movies that I remember hearing about, and I remember seeing it as a kid on like TV and stuff, but never really understanding it and just thinking later that it was a cult thing. And then finding out most people don't even know about this movie. So it's worth checking out, I think. It's super 80s and cringy at times. And again, it's a little slow. But it is interesting to kind of look at how Nintendo saw themselves. And to kind of just see how gaming has evolved, I think, from that time span till now. So, 1989's The Wizard.
Good recommendation, Joe.
Which also might hold the record for the most titles. I'm not sure of this. I have to look into it. But apparently in all the countries that it was released in, it had a different title. Entirely.
Huh.
Like, one was called, like, The Wizard Kid, and one was called Game Boy. One was just called The Game Boy. And, like, there was, like... Yeah, there was all kinds of different versions, like The Wizard of Gaming, like, all these variations of the title. I think because The Wizard was too... just... for the demographics of the countries, was just too broad. And gaming meant different things in different countries at the time. So it was very difficult to advertise this, because it was very much American culture of gaming, which is very different at the time as well.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think that that wraps up another thrilling adventure of the Insert Movie Reference Here podcast.
You'd be correct.
Good, I'm glad. So I guess that means I'm Nick Casino.
And I guess that means I'm Joe Conniff.
See you next week, and scene.
You have been listening to the Sinister Dreamcast Network. For more from Sinister Dream Productions, check out www.sinisterdream.com.